The Fucking Method is accomplishing the impossible in 3 steps. Let me show you how. Hi, I'm John. I graduated college in 1 year, an entrepreneur, traveled the world, and now I'm helping people reach peak performance in health, wealth, and relationships. Imagine a cold day on a wet track in Oxford, England. Roger Bannister shattered a psychological and physical barrier that had stood unchallenged for decades, the 4-minute mile.
The race itself. It's a moment frozen in time, and time is what this was all about.
Before this feat, the goal seemed as elusive as climbing a sheer cliff with no footholds. Athletes and coaches worldwide had tried and failed, anchored by a collective belief that it was unattainable.
Runners, decade after decade, were coming closer and closer, and then stopped within basically a second and a half. And we're getting no further, no matter how hard they tried.
But Bannister, a medical student and so-called lone wolf, defied conventional training methods and rewrote history on May 6, 1954, proving that the impossible could be made possible. His success was a psychological liberator for other runners.
Happy for him, but disappointed that I hadn't done it.
I was amazed. In some ways, it was a weight off my shoulders.
Just 46 days after Bannister broke the barrier, John Landy surpassed it again.
Landy may have lost the race to be the first to break 4 minutes, but 6 weeks later ran an even faster time, 3:58.
And soon, multiple runners were doing what had once been deemed impossible. It turned out that the real barrier was mental, not physical. What barriers in your own life seem insurmountable because of established mental models?
Training fleas requires a glass jar with a lid. The fleas are placed inside the jar, and the lid is then sealed. They are left undisturbed for 3 days. Then, when the jar is opened, the fleas will not jump out. In fact, the fleas will never jump higher than the level set by the lid. Their behavior is now set for the rest of their lives. And when these fleas reproduce, their offspring will automatically follow their example.
When I shared my video on how I graduated college in 1 year, I received a lot of comments from students, teachers, and parents on, wait a minute, this is possible? We didn't know this was possible. And sharing it with others has changed a lot of lives. I was overwhelmed with the sense of, wow, I made a big impact. And so this is called the Bannister effect. What people thought was once possible was now possible. Even with Roger Bannister, was there a sudden growth spurt in human evolution? Was there a genetic engineering experiment that created a new race of super runners? No. What changed was the mental model. The runners of the past had been held back by a mindset that said that they could not surpass the 4-minute mile. When that limit was broken, the others saw that they could do something they had previously thought impossible. To accomplish the impossible, we must first alleviate constraints. A lot of these constraints are all psychological. And with them being psychological, when we overcome these artificial constraints, these mental models we have in our head, that if they are fractured or if there's a way through it, it makes you think in a different way. And when you think in a different way, you are now open to more ideas, new possibilities, and you're not trapped in this box and just thinking, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. Because when you operate from that lens, it's harder to break out. And here's the exciting part. When we break out of these mental models, we permanently remove these mental barriers. And this is where it gets really cool. We move into one of my favorite exercises where you can do it anywhere in the world with a pen and paper.
I created a written exercise that I called fear setting. First page is right here. What if I ... question mark. This is whatever you fear, whatever is causing you anxiety, whatever you're putting off. Could be asking someone out, ending a relationship, asking for a promotion, quitting a job, starting a company, could be anything. In the first column, define. You're writing down all of the worst things you can imagine happening if you take that step. And then you go to the prevent column. In that column, you write down the answer to, what could I do to prevent each of these bullets from happening, or at the very least, decrease the likelihood, even a little bit. Then we go to repair. If the worst case scenario has happened, what could you do to repair the damage, or who could you ask for help?
The cost of inaction, procrastination, not doing the things that we are set out to do, has not only financial costs, but time costs, mental energy going towards it.
The cost of inaction. Humans are very good at considering what might go wrong if we try something new, say, ask for a raise. What we don't often consider is the atrocious cost of the status quo, not changing anything. So you should ask yourself, if I avoid this action or decision, what might my life look like in, say, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, and really get detailed. Again, emotionally, financially, physically. And when I did this, it painted a terrifying picture. And I realized that inaction was no longer an option for me.
Imagine you're considering a significant career change or contemplating a move across the country. It's big, it's daunting, and it's easy to keep putting it off. But what does that hesitation really cost you? Let's say you delay a decision to move for a better job. Beyond the lost income potential, the stress of uncertainty, the drain on your creativity from constant deliberation, the first step is the hardest and the most crucial. Taking the first step towards a significant life change, like booking that one-way ticket or enrolling in a course for a new career, can seem monumental, but it's about giving yourself the space to begin. Instead of binge-watching your next series, what if you folded one shirt, made one phone call, updating your resume, or visiting a new city you're considering for relocation?
Now, what I like to say is you should optimize for the starting line, not the finish line, right? So often when we think about habits, goals, routines, achievements, it's all about the milestone. We think about how much weight we want to lose, how much money we want to earn, how many subscribers we want to have. It's all fixed on the finish line. But instead, if you can optimize for the starting line and make it as easy as possible to get started and get your reps in, often the outcomes just come as a natural result.
So what other big, ambitious goals I've been holding on to, putting off until retirement, that I could potentially achieve if I just made a marginal adjustment to my routine? So I started doing them. I earned my auto racing license. I learned how to fly a helicopter, did rock climbing, skydiving, and learned how to fly planes aerobatically. All I do is take really big, ambitious projects that people seem to marvel at, break them down to their simplest form, and then just make marginal improvements along the way to improve my odds of achieving them.
In human biology, progressive overload is a key principle in strength training that involves gradually increasing the stress placed on the body. This can be done by raising weights, increasing repetitions, intensifying workouts, or adjusting rest periods. And as you continue to do harder things, your body just naturally adapts to doing more hard things. This, surprisingly, also works for your psychology, your mindset towards things. As you continue to do cognitively harder things, you are now more accustomed to being outside of that comfort zone.
Carol Dweck, professor of psychology at Stanford, analyzed two groups of kids struggling with their grades. One group was taught that every time they push out of their comfort zone to learn something new and difficult, the neurons in their brain would form new, stronger connections, and over time they would get smarter. The kids who were not taught this growth mindset lesson continued to show declining grades, but those who were taught this lesson showed a sharp rebound in their grades.
What's really exciting about this is that as we continue to do these progressive overloads on our growth mindset, we start to get desensitized to adversity. Being uncomfortable is temporary until it's made comfortable. So imagine if you did like this lovely experiment of just seeking out 25 rejections a week. You go out and you just get rejected, get hurt, hearing people say no. But you start to become desensitized to all of it. It breaks your frame of thinking, and now you're just used to doing hard tasks. And what once was hard is now easy.
Easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. The hard choices, what we most fear doing, asking, saying, these are very often exactly what we most need to do.
As a natural perfectionist, too often I overthink things and I don't really embrace that imperfect step. But without embracing that imperfect step, how do I even take step 1 to get to level 100? It takes time, it takes iterations, and without even beginning that first step, I don't get anywhere. And that has been a big challenge of mine.
Preparing to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Scheduling time to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Making a to-do list for the thing isn't doing the thing. Telling people you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. The only thing that is doing the thing is doing the thing.
Now, not how. Because when we focus on how, we paralyze ourselves in pursuing action. We need that uninformed optimism sometimes for us to even pursue something. Because if we know too much of something, it then makes us overthink. And what if we gotta do it perfectly? I gotta read more books. I gotta learn a bit more. I gotta do all these preparation in order to do the thing. Or do the thing, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Getting messy with it. Doesn't have to be right. Make mistakes. Just pursue it. Research has found that experiencing a moderate level of adversity can actually boost your mental health and well-being more than having none at all. These challenges teach us resilience, the art of bouncing back and growing from stress, which turns out can set you up for better handling of future stressors. When it comes to believing your own abilities, nothing beats having conquered real challenges. It's like muscle memory. Once you know how to get on stage and talk in front of a lot of people, despite feeling terrified, what is stopping you from tackling the next big challenge? When you can survive, talking in front of a camera and making a YouTube video and not get paralyzed by it, what's stopping me from doing the next video? Nothing. Why is this important? Because messy action, taking that imperfect step and getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, desensitizes yourself, making the hard easy. And here's where it gets more exciting. Imagine slipping on a lab coat and suddenly your attention sharpens and your errors decrease. In 2012, researchers Adam and Galinsky studied the impact of clothing on cognitive performance by having participants wear different lab coats, each imbued with a distinct professional identity. Those adorned with a doctor's lab coat consistently perform better on tasks requiring concentration compared to those wearing a painter's coat or no coat at all. This effect underscores how our attire can influence not just the perception others have of us, but also the way we engage with and excel in our tasks. This phenomenon, where our clothing affects our psychological state and identity, is known as enclothed cognition. Their research reveals that what we wear doesn't just change how others see us, it transforms how we perform and even think. And this isn't about lab coats, it's about the stories tied to what we wear. When they knew that it belonged to a doctor, there was a different story associated with it. Now, what does this tell us? It tells us that our identity is way more influential than we think.
Man, it really is true. You can change everything about you today. You could be like, I'm going to be the guy who wears bell-bottoms and open shirts and go to the thrift store.
And in an hour, you're that guy.
And in an hour with $30, you're that guy.
You're that guy. It's so true.
Todd Herman wrote the book, The Alter Ego Effect. And this book really shows you how, if you just align yourself with a different identity, you can embody that role. You can embody that person like a superhero. When you were younger, as a child, you're thinking through, I want to be Batman, I want to be Superman, I want to be Spider-Man, whatever that might be. You're just thinking, I am going to align myself. And you're on the playground, you fully embody it as a child. Now, we haven't lost that skill. It's still there. It's just now, how do you access it in the real world and on the playing field with your career, health, wealth, relationships, whatever those might be.
I started building out a framework around what I called identity-based performance, and along with that became the method of building an alter ego for an athlete.
There's a difference between who you are and what you are. What I am when I step on that court is, I am that killer snake.
They had a persona, they had a character, they had this way of being that they were taking out there, and so I simply just codified it. I'm the person who built the Black Mamba for Kobe Bryant. Serena Williams had her own character that she took out onto the court. Cristiano's, and his is just simply Ronaldo.
Along with creating and sculpting this alter ego, you also design behaviors and habits of that person. In other words, the importance of identity-based habits creates a foundation of lasting behavior change.
So true change is actually not behavior change, it's not results change, it's not process change, it's identity change. The goal is not to read a book, it's to become a reader. The goal is not to write a book or write an article, it's to become a writer. The goal is not to run a marathon, it's to become a runner. And the way to being something or becoming someone is through doing something. So every time you sit down to write, every time you practice that habit, you are being a writer. Every time you play a sport, you're being an athlete. Every time you practice painting or music or whatever, you're being an artist.
So why is this all important? You have to know yourself before you can tackle the next big thing. There's also that self-belief, and that self-belief is your identity. And your identity then allows you to go and pursue things that may or may not be in alignment of who you are. In Dr. Benjamin Hardy's book, 10x is easier than 2x, one of the most important things he talked about was that as you progress in life, you take a step back, you have to embrace a new identity. And when you embrace a new identity, which is letting go of 80% of who you once were into this new person of who you want to be, this is your ideal self. This is the ultimate version of your future self. You have to let go of 80% of who you are to be the 20% of who you are meant to be. If you hold onto the past and not embrace the opportunities of the future, where will this go? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. At the end of the day, when all three are aligned, you just have to say, fuck it, nothing is stopping me from getting this done.
Those last few seconds seem never ending. The faint line of the finishing tape stood ahead as a haven of peace after the struggle. I leapt at the tape, like a man taking his last spring to save himself from the chasm that threatens to engulf him. My effort was over, and I collapsed almost unconscious with an arm on either side of me. It was only then that the real pain overtook me. I knew I had done it before I even heard the pound. I felt as if I was too close to the fall.